Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf. TYT Nation, hold on. Just adjusting the sound levels. For some reason, they always get out of whack. Anyway, welcome to the show. Got a great show for you guys today here on this Wednesday afternoon, right before the holiday. Yes, we're going to be off for the holiday weekend, so that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We'll also not be doing a live show on Monday. So that's business related, so it's not like I'm going to be, like, you know, hanging out with my fam. I don't know. I won't be doing fun stuff. Let's just say that. I'll be getting some work done, and I'll probably be putting up some clips on Monday as well. So that's sort of the weekend roundup, what we're going to be doing, but that's the schedule going on. It's a bit of a weird week, but hey, that's all right. We'll have fun doing it anyway. Even if it's a short week, still got to get some news to go through. So, of course, we're going to talk about a report about Donald Trump, what he wanted to do to his political opponents. Fascinating. Actually, incredibly dangerous. You also have President Trump on Ivanka's emails. We have insurance companies ready to strike against Medicare for All. I'm going to tell you what kind of attacks they're going to use. We'll go through that, of course. We also have two stories about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. For one, CNBC decided to take a look at her finances and then scold her for not having enough money. We're going to break down why that's a ridiculous attack. Then we're going to be talking about Sarah Palin versus Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. How the right is attacking her right now. Great. Fun. So those are going to be interesting, fun stories. And so we'll start off with something a little bit heavier, and then we'll get into the more of the light stuff. And for that, we will start out with Donald Trump versus the rule of law. Yeah. Okay. So earlier this week in the New York Times, there was a bit of a bombshell that was dropped. We found out what Donald Trump wanted to do to his political opponents. And it wasn't just rhetoric. He actually wanted to do these things. Now, what things am I talking about? Well, this would be criminally prosecuting Hillary Clinton and James Comey. Now, of course, that same New York Times report noted that the only person who was able to stop him was White House counsel Don McGahn. Now, Trump, this is according to the New York Times, who has attacked the pair's ceaselessly in campaign rallies and interviews, told now former White House counsel Don McGahn that he wanted the nation's top law enforcement agency to investigate several unfounded accusations against Hillary Clinton and James Comey. That has included claims that Comey shared classified information with the Times and that Clinton played a role in the approval of a uranium mining company sale to Russia. So that is the Uranium One scandal, right? Now, the only reason Trump didn't do it is McGahn stepped in and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. First of all, this is going to be politically disastrous. So you're going to go and try to do criminal accusations, prosecutions against your political opponents. Do you know how bad that looks? Do you know how much the media is going to be on your shit? Do you know how much everybody's going to be on your shit? This is a terrible, terrible move. Not only that, but McGahn warned that he could be impeached for abuse of power. Now, look, would that be enough for the Republicans to do so? I don't know, right? Republicans have pretty much proven these days to be essentially the party of Trump. Now, why is that? Well, it's because right now, being pro-Trump is popular. It really works for the Republican base. As soon as it stops working, well, then, of course, Republicans are going to be like, they're going to drop Trump like a hot potato. Anyway, now the Times, citing people familiar with the matter, reported that McGahn also had other White House lawyers draft a memo saying as much. So they all tried to get together to stop Donald Trump from doing something that would be politically disastrous. Now, Not only that, but afterwards, he didn't go through with it, but he sure wanted to, and he talked about it, of course, and even considered appointing a special counsel to investigate both Hillary Clinton and James Comey. Now, why would he want to do that? I mean, what got into his head in the first place? I mean, okay, yes, he ran against Hillary Clinton. He didn't like Hillary Clinton. I mean, during the campaign, before the campaign, they were friends, or apparently at least had pictures taken together and all that. But of course, during the campaign, all that went out the window. So, okay, maybe that's why he did it. But maybe there's a little bit more. According to the New York Times, Judge Jeanine Pirro, who is a huge suck-up to President Trump. So this is somebody who's deeply, deeply pro-Trump on Fox News, always praises the president, and this is somebody that the president watches. Well, Pirro had told Trump in the Oval Office last November that he should get the Department of Justice to appoint a special counsel to investigate the Uranium One scandal. Well, okay. So here's the thing. Now, after she did that, here you had White House Chief of Staff John Kelly basically telling her, what are you doing? You're inflaming, quote, an already vexed president. You are putting ridiculous, stupid ideas into his head. Like, why are you doing that? This is going to do nothing more than hurt you politically. So now, look, if you're somebody who says, who supports Donald Trump, you don't want him to hurt himself politically. Now, maybe if he had done this, it would have been an absolute disaster and everything would have gotten shot down. Nonetheless, okay, this is basically their perspective, right? Now, here's the thing about Trump. I've told you before, he is a Fox News president, right? Now, Pirro, if you've ever watched her show, and you know, look, I've had the misfortune of having to watch clips, right? She goes on half-cocked rants about nonsense. But here you have Donald Trump that ends up acting on it, or trying to act on it. What is nothing more than red meat. This is meant to be red meat to get Republicans out to vote, right? That's all that it is, because there's no factual basis in this, or at least if there is, they will twist those facts for a political advantage, right? That red meat ends up being consumed by the president himself, who now, of course, threatens political opponents with prison. That's what our democracy has gotten to. That's what our system of government has fallen to right now, is that we have a president that, with no factual basis, is saying we should lock up our political opponents. And if he were to do so, and if he were to get away with it, well, that would be disastrous for democracy. Okay? That's not what we do in this country. It's not what we do in a representative democracy. Especially when numerous investigations found that neither Comey nor Clinton did anything illegal. Now, was it wrong to have a server in the basement? Was it wrong to do some of the stuff that Hillary Clinton did? Of course. Was it illegal? Apparently not. Look, even Hillary Clinton cheating Bernie Sanders out of the nomination, the DNC, that is not something that you can throw her in prison for. Okay? So, he wants to jail his opponents on nothing more than bullshit. Now, who else does that? Fascists do that. And look, if you don't want to be involved in his law-breaking and you're part of the cabinet, he will get rid of you. No, hell, it doesn't even take that. You could be the most loyal person, but if you decide to not do one thing Donald Trump doesn't want you to do, he will get rid of you. For example, Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions, just fired by Trump, forced out of his position, right? Why? It's because he recused himself in the Russia probe. Even though that, look, he was very, very, very loyal Trump soldier. Okay? He was the first guy to come out and actually support Donald Trump. The first senator, when it was politically risky to do so. He was the first guy. Not only that, but he was even receptive to putting a special counsel to investigate Hillary Clinton. So, look, even if you do support some of his law breaking, if you are not 100% loyal and only serve him and not the law as you're supposed to do, then you'll fire you. Because he actually believes that the Attorney General is basically his personal lawyer. And all those people literally work for him. That Don McGahn worked for him. No, he's the White House lawyer. And Jeff Sessions was the Attorney General for the United States. Look, again, this man has fascist tendencies and really wants to be surrounded by nothing more than sycophantic yes men who will excuse him and protect him from any sort of wrongdoing. Now, the right wing used to go crazy about, oh, King Obama, King Barry, with his executive orders. But in reality, that's what they want for Trump. They want a dictator. They want a king. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in rule of law. They believe in jailing their opponents. And they believe going after the press, calling them the enemy of the people. And they believe in, of course, the president being able to do essentially whatever the hell he wants. That is not America. That is dangerous. And that is one reason why he's got to go. Now, I'm not saying impeachment, and I'm not saying not impeachment, right? In reality, impeachment is super, super hard to do. And right now, I'm not looking at that. Right now, I'm looking at, let's vote him out in 2020 if he makes it for that long. But one way or another, the guy's got to go. Okay. Moving on. Here we go. Now, President Trump was recently asked about the report where Ivanka, his oldest daughter, used private emails for government business. Now, I was told over and over that this was a no-no. Oh, my God. Like, you can't use private personal emails for government use. No, that's a terrible thing. It's actually the worst thing, and we should lock you up. Now, knowing President Trump's rhetoric on using private emails, he must be very upset with Ivanka, not knowing that she shouldn't use those private emails. Well, is he? Well, let's take a look.
Why was it appropriate for your daughter to use personal email for
just so you understand, early on, and for a little period of time, Ivanka did some emails. They weren't classified like Hillary Clinton. Yep. They weren't deleted like Hillary Clinton, who deleted 33. She wasn't hiring. She wasn't doing anything to hide her emails. I looked at it just very briefly today, and the presidential records, they're all in presidential records. There was no hiding. There was no deleting like Hillary Clinton did. There was no servers in the basement like Hillary Clinton had. You're talking about a whole different, you're talking about all fake news. So what Ivanka did, it's all in the presidential records. Everything is there. There was no deletion. There was no nothing. What it is a false story. Hillary Clinton deleted 33,000 emails. She had a server in the basement. That's the real story.
No, it's not. No, that's okay. So here's the thing. Trump comes out and says, Ivanka did some emails. That's fake news. The real story is Hillary Clinton. Now, Hillary Clinton, you guys know I want Hillary Clinton to go away. I want her to go away. I never want to talk about her ever again. Yet, for some reason, Trump does not want to stop talking about her. Wants to continue to bring her up no matter what. Oh, they're all in the presidential records with the emails, except for Hillary. Again, the fact that they're not, that they are a private emails means they're not in the presidential records. That is the whole point of her being in trouble. That's the problem. Okay, but going back to Hillary Clinton, right? I wonder why Donald Trump keeps bringing up Hillary Clinton. I wonder why. Maybe it could be that she's the only person that is less popular than Donald Trump. And of course, it gives right-wingers a Pavlovian response. Oh, Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. And then they start foaming at the mouth. And of course, some on the left do the same thing. Look, I don't care about Hillary Clinton. I want Hillary Clinton gone. Her time is past. I want her out of politics. I want people to fucking drop it. And to never say her name again. For God's sakes. I never want to talk about her again. But nonetheless, there are two people in American politics right now that are trying to force Hillary Clinton back on us. First one is Hillary Clinton. Stop. Just stop. And the other, of course, is what I just mentioned, Donald Trump. And then, of course, you have establishment media like Politico, etc., that can't quit talking about, oh, Hillary 2020, Hillary 2020. Oh, is she going to run again? Is she going to run again? No, oh my God. No, please don't. For God's sakes, please don't. But nonetheless, that said, despite the president's claims, the FBI concluded, and the FBI are not some leftist tree huggers, okay? These are Republicans. These are conservatives, right? That are mostly in law enforcement, okay? They said that she did not lie about her emails and said that her personal server was not compromised. As I said, was it a stupid thing to do to have a private email server? Yes, it is. It is a dumb thing, and you can go back to videos during the campaign of me talking about how stupid that was and how they could end up getting compromised and that there should be something, a fine or something like that, right, for using those private emails. Again, it's wrong. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it, right? So now, going to Republican logic, right? Well, they said, and one of the big chants at Trump rallies is, lock her up, lock her up. Well, if you're not supposed to use private email servers or private emails using conducting government business because they can get intercepted, well then, if Hillary deserves to be locked up, so does Ivanka. She did not quite the same thing, but pretty similar. In fact, she didn't use a private server. She used like a Microsoft server, which is even less secure than a private server. So if anything could be intercepted, it's her emails. And so Ivanka, lock her up, lock her up, lock her up. And if you're not in favor of that, well then, hey, if you're in favor of locking Hillary up, but not Ivanka for essentially the same thing, then you're a gigantic hypocrite. Gigantic. But we already know the answer to that in regards to Trump. We know. He said it. Oh, Ivanka did nothing wrong. Hillary. Right? Okay, but what about Fox News, right? What about Fox News state media, right? Well, they were all over Hillary Clinton's emails in 2016. Well, you're not going to be shocked to find out that Fox News also didn't care. Now, Mediaite published an article that noted that Ivanka's emails had received about 25 seconds of mention on Tuesday's edition of Fox and Friends. I want to show you that, by the way, what they said in those roughly 25 seconds.
Ivanka Trump's lawyer is slamming a report she used her private email for government business. The Washington Post claims the White House advisor may have violated federal rules by using her personal account to communicate with officials. A spokesperson for Trump's lawyer tells Fox News, quote, there was never classified information transmitted. The account was never transferred or housed at Trump Organization. No emails were ever deleted.
Oh, look, Fox News, the only mention that they make of the Ivanka Trump email is a statement from her lawyer. That's it. That's it. What happened, Fox News? I thought emails were important. Look, you'll talk all day about Hillary's emails, but not going to talk about Ivanka's? Just going to give a bullshit statement from her lawyer? Of course they're not, right? They're Fox News state media. Of course. Yeah, of course they're going to be complete and total hypocrites, as well as the Trump family. Because at the end of the day, that's who they are. All they care about is bullshit partisanship and nothing else. All right. I'm going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk about the insurance companies versus Medicare for all. What are they doing to try to shut it down? And maybe how we can fight back. All right. We'll cover that after the break. If you have any comments, super chats, etc., let us know. And we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to the show. Run the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf with you. Okay. We are going to go into the next story here about Medicare single payer, which is that is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. So that should be very interesting to talk about, especially how the centrist Democrats are, and of course the insurance companies are trying to crush it. We don't have any super chats. That is one way to help the show, by the way. That helps us out a great deal. Another way to help, of course, is to like and share the stream. If you haven't already, please do so. That helps a great deal. Also, if you guys are watching on Facebook, do the same thing. Facebook's a little bit harder for us to get a foot in the door and to be able to reach an audience. So having a hard time with that. If you guys could help by watching on Facebook as well, great. Okay, anyway, let's dive into the story. Let's go into Medicare for All and how they plan to stop it. In the last couple of years, following Bernie Sanders' run for president, Medicare for All, the issue of Medicare for All, has become increasingly popular. Turns out people are tired of dealing with insurance companies, rising premiums, these insurance CEOs basically being the middlemen, and they are ready to try a new system, a system called single payer. Now, that system, of course, has been adopted by every other modern industrialized country in the world, but yet for some reason, there are still people out there saying, oh no, but it could never work in America. Nonetheless, that propaganda is not getting through to the people. Right now, 70% of the American people are in favor of it, and health insurance companies, they're not happy about it, and they are desperate to try to derail this before 2020, before Congress, even a progressive Congress or progressive president goes to try to enact it. Now, they are afraid, which is why, along with the corporate Democrats in Congress, they're now unleashing an assault on the whole idea of single payer. Now, this is according to strategy documents obtained by The Intercept and the watchdog group Documented. Now, they say that the private healthcare industry is working aggressively alongside corporate Democrats to spread anti-single payer propaganda and, quote, minimize the potential for Medicare for All as an alternative to the current for-profit status quo. Now, that current for-profit system, of course, is disastrous. Anybody who's under it knows that it's not a system that is set up to help you. It's a system set up to help giant multinational corporations, and actually does it at far more expensive of a price than it does, or than a single payer system would, right? So it's far more expensive, for example, to get healthcare here in America than it does in Canada or the UK. But let me give you more details on who is working on this. Apparently, according to The Intercept, this whole effort is being directed by former Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton staffers, as well as leading insurance industry lobbyists. And look, there is a lot of overlap within those two groups. Oh, those insurance lobbyists get onto presidential campaigns or get into office, and then they go back to being lobbyists afterwards. That's kind of how this horrific revolving door works. And so that's one thing that we need to shut down. Now, those two things together, those insurance lobbyists and Hillary staffers, are getting together in an alliance called the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future. And they tried very, very hard during the build-up to the 2018 midterm elections to convince candidates to, quote, focus on shoring up the Affordable Care Act instead of supporting single-payer healthcare. Now, there were some previous documents as well saying, oh, if Republicans attack it, here's how to defend it, but don't actually do so. Don't defend single payer. Basically, agree with the Republicans and say, yes, single payer is bad. It is socialism. And we don't want socialism here in America. We want to fix the ACA, which gives massive amounts of subsidies to health insurance corporations. Now, The principal objective of the partnership's project, The Intercept reports, is to peel support away from Senator Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All legislation, which was introduced with 16 Senate Democratic co-sponsors last September. In terms of tactics, it sounds like they'll just be updating the same lines they used in the 1990s to sideline reform efforts and in the ACA fight to keep single-payer healthcare off the table. That is a quote from Egan Kemp, a healthcare policy advocate with Public Citizen. Now, he's absolutely right. It's just more status quo. It's just more, oh, no, we can't do that because we've got to fix the ACA. But you can't fix a system that was already broken to begin with. And that's what the ACA is. For-profit healthcare is not a symptom of the disease. It is the disease. High premiums are a direct offshoot of that. Again, that is a symptom of the disease. But the disease itself is for-profit healthcare. The system itself is broken. We cannot have a healthcare system that is fair and just and affordable based on profit. It's just impossible. You can't do it. There has to be a system that is set up to where profit is excluded from this if you want everybody to be able to have healthcare. That's just the way that it is. Now, the Partnership for America's Healthcare Future is basically, could be more accurately titled, the Partnership for Profiting Off America's Healthcare. Because that's basically what it is. And that's what Egan Kemp had called it. Now, The Intercept also reported that their campaign, this is how they're going to do it, is basically they're encouraging healthcare companies concerned about the growing popularity of Medicare for All to mobilize opposition among clients, customers, and employees. They want to turn the people against single payer. Now, how are they going to do that? Well, one tactic we've already seen is, yeah, but how are you going to pay for it? I mean, it's just so expensive. I mean, you want to go to a single payer, that's $32 trillion. Where are you going to come up with $32 trillion? Well, we already spend that much on our healthcare system right now. And actually, it would actually cost less to go under a single-payer healthcare system. For example, according to a recent Koch-funded study published in July, single-payer would actually save the American public a total of $2 trillion. And that is the most, not just politically, but also conservative estimate that they could come up with. And still, it ends up saving money. It saves taxpayer money, and it saves people money in premiums. And of course, a lot of people are worried, but they're going to say taxes. And that's the other thing. Well, they're going to have to raise your taxes. Yeah, you raise taxes by just a little bit, but the money people will save in premiums is offset. And you never have to worry about healthcare. You don't have to worry about premiums, co-pays, or deductibles. And that's where it ends up saving you personally money. And it also saves the government money, because when you look how efficient Medicare is right now versus the private health insurance companies, those private health insurance companies have a lot of bloat and a lot of overhead, as well as advertising costs. You can eliminate those by going to a single-payer healthcare system. And so, of course, that gets to how we can fight back against this effort, right? Which, by the way, has been bankrolled by think tanks like The Third Way. Now, The Third Way, right after the midterm elections took place, went onto the Washington Post. And this is what they do. They go onto the Washington Post, they go into corporate media, and they basically go and they slam progressives. They attack progressives, and they attack progressive ideas with ridiculous op-eds. They spread hysteria about the cost of Medicare for All. They use Republican talking points. Not only that, but look, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, both not in favor of Medicare for All. They use those same talking points, and they ask, how are you going to pay for it, when we already know, we've already explained how we can pay for it. So how do we fight back against this? We fight back with truth. We fight back with the facts. We fight back with honesty. We tell the American people, and look, they already know, 70% of Americans already think that this is great. So you counter their propaganda and you frame this in the right way. And you say, yes, it will be cheaper to pay through your taxes than it is to pay out of pocket for this health insurance, for this for-profit health insurance. These guys are the middleman. They're getting in between you and your doctor and telling you what you can do. As far as waiting lines, there are waiting lines everywhere. That's another attack that they use. There are waiting lines right now. If I called my doctor up today, I wouldn't get in for another 2 weeks to a month. That's a waiting line. And that's with private insurance. So don't tell me that we don't have waiting lines here in America when it comes to our care. We do, and our care is so much more expensive than every other industrialized modern country that has a single-payer healthcare system. Counter them with facts, because the facts are on our side. The economics are on our side. And the only thing they have on their side is bullshit and greed. That's how we win this. That's how they lose, because they are always destined to lose. Medicare for all will happen. Okay. Okay. So both the right-wing and centrist Democrats have been very critical of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, she, of course, defeated Joe Crowley in New York and is now a sitting member of the House of Representatives. So now they attack her a lot because she is young. She's 29 years old. She is Latina, and she is deeply, deeply progressive. So those are things that the establishment cannot handle. And so recently, another hit piece against Ocasio-Cortez has come from CNBC. Now, they apparently are calling her irresponsible because she doesn't have the right amount of savings for somebody her age. Now, CNBC had interviewed several financial planners for a story about her savings, and they were very surprised, very shocked that a 29-year-old who was working as a bartender until February of this year didn't have at least $30,000 saved up in the bank. $30,000. I'm going to get to how insane that is. But first, here's her analysis. They said, Ocasio-Cortez's level of savings isn't bad, but based on her previous earnings, experts recommend that she should have between $8,750 and $30,000 put away for a crisis. They also recommend that she should have over $27,000 saved for retirement. And that, of course, is based on the logic that by the time you hit age 30, you should have a year's worth of salary put away. Wow. Now, CNBC also cited data from Fidelity. It showed that in order to save up enough money to have a year's salary put away, millennials should save up to about 15% of each paycheck. Financial planners suggested the only reason this wasn't happening was because millennials were lazy, irresponsible, and they weren't setting a monthly budget. One of the financial planners CNBC quoted said, ideally, a 29-year-old will have at least a few $1,000s in a cash reserve and the equivalent of a year's salary in a retirement investment account. That is Paul Fain, said of Ocasio-Cortez. Now, let me not be the first person to say this, but this is bullshit. The idea that millennials are irresponsible because we're not able to save $30,000 is ridiculous. I have $30,000 in student loans. I don't have $30,000 in the bank. I have no savings right now. I'm kind of fucked economically, and I'm not the only one. I am not alone. In fact, look, I wish I had the $7,000 Ocasio-Cortez has. To be able to save up that much money. A lot of millennials are like, shit, I'd love to have that much money. I don't know how she managed to do that in New York. She must be very responsible. look, especially when you look at the data, right? Showing how hard it is to actually save up enough money. Now, in August, the Urban Institute published a report finding that 40% of Americans make so little that they frequently have to go without basic necessities like food, shelter, and healthcare. I don't have healthcare. I don't have health insurance. So how do you manage it, right? How do most Americans manage it? It turns out most Americans don't manage it. We can't because we end up getting paid so little. Now it gets worse. The Federal Reserve Board also discovered that nearly half of Americans can't even afford an unexpected $400 emergency expense without having to go into debt or sell some of their possessions. So these analysts that are ragging on Ocasio-Cortez for having only $7,000 saved at the bank in the bank and not having $30,000 saved up are completely out of touch. 100% out of touch. Like, they don't know what the average person, the average working person actually goes through and has to contend with. But of course, I have the information on that. But first, I just want to contrast those two pieces of data with what happened around the same time that this report came out. In that same amount of time, second quarter corporate profits ended up hitting another record high. Corporate profits are up, and yet half of Americans don't have enough money to satisfy basic necessities, right? And can't afford a $400 emergency. That's not an accident. Those things happen in relation to each other. They go hand in hand. The more corporate profits rise, the more money gets hoarded at the top, the less goes to you. It's not a coincidence. People are not getting paid a living wage. We're not getting what we put in with work. We are the most productive in history. And yet, we get none of that. Not only that, but people have huge amounts of college debt. And of course, some live in areas where the cost of living is extremely high and they're getting gentrified out of the area. Not only that, but you have wage theft. I want to show you a graphic here about wage theft. It really shows how terrible that practice really is and how much Americans lose from it. Wage theft. It turns out that in 2012, wage theft accounted to $933 million. That's more than just people getting mugged, people getting robbed. $933 million. That's how much the corporations are stealing from you. They're taking it from you and putting it back into their own pockets. That is horrific, is disastrous. Not only that, but you had wages, as I said, not keeping up with productivity. Thanks to the Reagan administration, who started the trend of union busting. He was very, very anti-worker. And I'm going to show you what happened when that started happening and when money got involved in politics. Look at this. Pay rose with productivity, 1947 to 1979. Right as Ronald Reagan got into office, you had the Great Regression. You had compensation, wages that have flatlined. Oh, but look at that, corporate profits. Corporate profits increased, productivity increased, but yet workers were just not getting their fair share. And that unfortunately started with money in politics and Ronald Reagan and trickle-down economics, voodoo economics, and we're still unfortunately suffering under that system today. And so, look, you had, again, to go back to union busting, you know, unions have almost no power and influence now, thanks to Ronald Reagan. And so by the time millennials got into the workforce, guess what? We face jobs that have subpar wages and no benefits. Now, I was very lucky when I was younger to actually get into a job that was a union job. I was paid $13 an hour and I actually had decent benefits. I had health care, I had dental care, I had all this nice stuff, vision. That job, well, that job ended up getting, of course, shut down because they wanted to shut it down, outsource it, or bring it back with lower pay. And that's what happened to a lot of manufacturing jobs. Now jobs, and this is 13 years later, come back getting paid $11 an hour with very, very skinny benefit packages, if any. So that's what's happening here in America. That is what's happened. We are in a race to the bottom. And look, we don't have union representation anymore. That's what happens. We have right to work. That's what happens. It ends up being you have the right to work, but you have the right to work for less. Reagan is probably one of the most destructive presidents in history. And that, look, when it comes to the middle class, he's the most destructive. But when it comes to the wealthy, he is, to them, a hero because, for obvious reasons, his policies of cutting taxes for the rich helped them immensely. Now, there's more. As Axios reported back in July, the median income for 30-year-olds in 1977, and this shows how we have not kept up with that, was about $34,000 a year. Now, that was $2,833 a month before taxes. That average, that median income for a 30-year-old, is unchanged in 2016. When adjusted for inflation, $34,000 in December of 1977 is equal to about $132,184 in December of 2016 dollars. That is $11,000 a month. Now, unfortunately, nowadays, our pay did not get adjusted for inflation. Our job did not keep up with inflation, did not keep up with productivity. So we're not out there making $11,000 a year, most of us. We're still making $34,000 a year. Now, it's obviously much easier to stick away $30,000 if you're making over $130,000 a year. Not so much if you're still making the 30. And those who can, look, I got to point out, by the way, location makes a big difference. Now, for example, where I live, $130,000, man, you're living the dream. But in New York and LA, it's not that great. So, and these are areas that have been heavily gentrified. And so the cost of living is just insane. Now, I have more data, like, for example, rent. Now, data from Statista shows that the monthly median rent for an unfurnished apartment in the United States in 1980 was about $308 a month. Now, adjusted for inflation, it's about $981 in today's dollars, right? But in 2017, that figure, how much rent is just shy of about $1,500 per month. And of course, in New York, LA, it's double that. So it just shows that rent is even far more expensive in today's dollars than it was before for an unfurnished apartment. Now, let's go to childcare. Childcare costs for both in-home and in-center childcare have also climbed to an average of about $1,385 for parents who need someone to look after their kids while they work. So that leads to the situation, by the way, where you're just working to pay for childcare. And you're not getting ahead, you're basically running in place. More economic stagnation. That is almost as much as the median rent of $1,500 a month. For single parents, it gets worse. Childcare can eat up as much as about 40% of annual take-home pay. To put these numbers in context, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services says that childcare shouldn't cost more than 7% of a parent's income. And yet, for a single parent, it can eat up nearly half of your income for childcare alone. There is a problem here in America. There is a huge problem. So you put all of those different factors together, and you should start to understand why so many people just don't have the ability to save. And of course, student loans, right? I mentioned the average student loan is somewhere around $32,000 to $34,000. And the average payments are about $575 a month. That's more money that people just don't have. And so, look, people try to save. We try to do the right thing. We put off parenthood, marriage, home ownership, vacations. Vacations. Never had a vacation in my life. And all those things, you put those away. And even by the time we're in our 30s, we're still not able to do any of that stuff. We don't have anything to show for it except for more student loan debt. So, but hey, we're the irresponsible ones, according to CNBC. Millennials. And I'm still part of the millennial generation. And that's the reality that we live in. And we're getting blamed for being born into an economic system that has been rigged to benefit the extremely wealthy and extremely connected at our expense. And here you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wanting to fix that system, wanting to put in place policies that will actually reverse this trend, that will allow people to have health care, allow people to have affordable rent, affordable child care, things like that. Good jobs, well-paying jobs that pay a living wage. And yet she is attacked by the people, the very people who benefit from this absolutely rigged system. CNBC and their so-called experts are not only so completely disconnected to the reality of average Americans, but are in themselves a complete joke. Their advice is a joke, and they're a joke. And unfortunately, nobody's laughing. Not in these times. Okay. We'll take another quick break here. We'll come back. We have Sarah Palin versus Ocasio-Cortez. That should be fun. We'll be right back around the nation. Hey everybody, back on the show. Around the nation right here, Jeff Waldorf with you. That was a depressing story, but one that has to be told over and over again until those assholes get it. All right. One more story for you guys today before we head off to the weekend, and that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez versus Sarah Palin. Now, former loser governor Sarah Palin attempted to shame Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez over a small verbal gaffe. And now, of course, it is coming back to bite her in the ass. Now, in a video from a conference call posted online, Palin was among some critics of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and attempting to shame her after she referred to the three bodies of the U.S. government as the presidency, the House, and the Senate. Now, of course, people make that mistake. Regular people who then go and correct it immediately. She's like, oh, oops. Well, I know what that's like. Now, Palin shared a link to a blog post from her website about Ocasio-Cortez's slip-up. And it is funny that she has a website called Governor Palin, when she hasn't been relevant in politics since she quit the governorship in Alaska. And by the way, something very interesting about her governorship, as she rails against the socialism of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, don't forget that she nationalized her oil profits from these companies and gave it to every single Alaskan. If that's not socialism, I don't know what socialism is. And likely, if you're a fan of Ben Shapiro or Governor Palin, you probably don't understand what socialism is either. Nonetheless, after she posted this blog post, both right-wingers and centrist Democrats decided they were going to pounce and attack her for, oh, she doesn't know anything about the government. She knows nothing, and she's an elected representative. Oh my God. Do you guys forget that we have, well, first we had Palin, that could have been the vice president of the United States. And not only that, we have people like Louis Gohmert who have no idea what they're talking about space gays. I mean, seriously. You want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? Look at the president. Talking about how raking the forests will prevent forest fires. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? But of course, the centrist Democrats and right-wingers, it's almost as if they get together united in their hatred of progressives and progressive ideas. But then again, of course, as I said, this is a small mistake in which she immediately corrected. And I know what it's like to misspeak. Believe me. And so does, I imagine, Sarah Palin. After all, before Donald Trump, she was one of the most high-profile gaffe machines in America. For example, back when she was asked, 2008, by Katie Couric, what kind of newspapers do you read? Now, that's a pretty simple question, right? It's like, oh, I read the New York Times, or I read the Washington Post, or I read both. Those are prolific newspapers. Or maybe choose something that's more local. Newspapers in Alaska. Now, I don't live in Alaska, so I don't know Alaska newspapers. Oh, got you. I'm sure some right-winger is doing that right now, but nonetheless, she couldn't answer that question. Not one. She said, I've read most of them, again with a great appreciation for the press, for the media. Later on, the same media that she now refers to as the lamestream media. Now, when pressed by Couric to specify what newspaper, okay, just give me an example of a newspaper that you read. She said all of them. Any of them that have been in front of me over the last years. I have a vast variety of sources. A vast variety of sources. Great. Palin, that's not the only time she's messed up. She also said that the U.S. has to stand with our North Korean allies. I guess maybe now that was ahead of its time, since Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un are BFFs. But back then, not so much. She also was unable to accurately answer what a vice president does. What's a vice president do? He can go in the Senate and he can do votes. No, he can't. No. The only time where a vice president can come down to the Senate is during a tiebreaker vote. That's the only time. They can't vote on legislation. She's not as smart as a third grader. She's dumber than the third grader. Which again, I think it's sort of insulting towards third graders. But there's more. Afghanistan, according to her, is our neighboring country. No, it's not. It's halfway around the world. She also said about Russia, they're our next door neighbors. And you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska. From an island in Alaska. No, you can't. No, you can't. She said New Hampshire, which is in New England, was part of the Great Northwest. Oops. She also told Bill O'Reilly that the Constitution was, quote, clearly based off the Bible. Really? Are you sure about that? And not Enlightenment ideas? Because Enlightenment ideas are definitely distinct from the Bible. And the Constitution has this whole separation of church and state thing. She also said the vice president can get in there with the senators and make a lot of good policy changes, as I mentioned before. The Constitution says the vice president shall have no vote. So, again, does she understand the Constitution? Does she actually know what's in it? No. On Paul Revere, she said that Paul Revere warned the British that they, quote, they weren't going to be taking away our arms. No, he didn't tell the British that they're not going to be taking our guns. No. Paul Revere warned the colonists that the British army was marching towards them. She doesn't know anything. So it's pretty funny to see Sarah Palin attempting to shame someone on their slip-ups when she has had so many. So many. But then again, let's not be surprised that we have a president that is deeply anti-intellectual. Somebody who says, oh my God, that Puerto Rico, that the reason that we couldn't help Puerto Rico is because it was an island surrounded by water. Big water. Ocean water. Or that, we need to watch out for the people in the migrant caravan. We need to send our military to the border, which, by the way, we're bringing them back from the border just in time for their so-called invasion to get here in America. That you need to watch out because there's MS-13 and there's Middle Eastern in it. Middle Eastern? What? Or how he says he's a very stable genius and that we need people with more brain in the government. All actually things that he has said. All things he said. So, hey, right-wingers, if you're going to throw stones at people, make sure you're not living in a fucking glass house. That's all I'm saying. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you guys today for this week. I urge everyone to have a safe and happy holiday. Whatever you celebrate, Friendsgiving, Thanksgiving, whatever, man. Just have a good time. Be safe out on the roads, etc. Especially if you're living in the Northeast or anywhere where the weather could get a little nasty. Please be careful. Spend some time with your family. Have some fun. Eat whatever you're going to eat. And just enjoy yourselves. And we'll be back on Tuesday. That is Tuesday of next week. So, but there will be some clips on Monday. So I'll be trying to do some clips for you guys. And look out, there may be a video game stream on the weekend as well. Over the holiday weekend. So look out for that, guys. And thank you all. Love you guys. And remember, change begin with you. Good night, guys. We'll see you all next week.